Hey everyone, just so there's no misunderstanding here, yeah, I'm not a proponent or a cheerleader for those south of the border who are crony corporations. And what this video is going to be referencing and what this article is referencing is, yes, the US has now turned to more cronyism, more corporate bailouts, and more interventions in the economy as a means to counter other bad actors in other countries such as Canada that do the same kind of shit. Once again though, folks, this always turns into a race to the bottom. This is not what raises and elevates, whether it's individuals, business leaders, corporations. This is headed back in a direction that in reality we should have never reached this point. But because of lobbying, and crony corporations and the incentive that comes as a result of lobbying government to give your particular business a leg up over your competition, well, you see what happens. Once you start down that road, once you start using, the political means and political measures and legislation as a means to suppress your competition, well, then it's like I say, it is literally that race to the bottom because your opponents are going to do the very same thing. Headline, this is out of Yahoo News. Trade war begins. Feds eye $30 billion bailout fund for farmers facing losses. And this being reported by Mary Peppenfuss from the Huffington Post, July 6, 2018. President Donald Trump's trade war was officially launched at 12:01 Friday morning as U.S. officials were already strategizing a controversial move to use emergency funds to mitigate the damage to farmers facing punishing retaliatory tariffs. The Trump administration officially levied tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese products at the start of a major trade battle predicted to exact significant costs on consumers and businesses. China was expected to announce its own comparable tariffs on $34 billion of U.S. goods Friday. Chinese officials had said they would not announce the tariffs until after the U.S. did so. Chinese tariffs, including a 25% charge on soybeans, are expected to hit U.S. farmers particularly hard since the country currently buys nearly 2/3 of the soybeans exported by U.S. farmers. But Trump, who has attacked Harley-Davidson for plans to move some production to its overseas plants to avoid retaliatory European tariffs, is looking to save my farmers from the trade war he launched. Rural support was critical to his presidential victory. Unhappy farmers could spell trouble for midterm elections. So like I've said in prior videos, these trade wars, what you're doing is, whether they're from the right or left, is you're picking winners or losers in the economy. Genuine free markets, and you know what, I have to say right now, Trump has actually suggested that, hey, you want to get rid of our tariffs and our barriers to entry when it comes to global or economic trade in all these countries around the world and all these agreements? Well, hey, you get rid of yours, we'll get rid of ours. And you know what? He's the only one I've heard out there suggesting as such. So once again, he at least gets a little bit of credibility and acknowledgement for being the only one out there I've seen on the political or media landscape saying this. Yeah, there's protectionism. Yeah, there's some bad shit that goes down that's causing harm to the domestic economies and international trade agreements. But hey, we're willing, I guess what Trump's saying is U.S. is willing to, take away some of those barriers to trade, but you have to be willing to do the same thing. And if you're not, well, hey, we'll double down. You want to go against us? Well, we'll double down and we'll go against you. So once again, I guess what Trump's saying is we'd rather raise all boats than try to sink them. But hey, if you want to sink my boat, yeah, I'm going to blow a hole in your boat twice as big as the one that's in mine. So once again, we're all going to sink. It's just who's going to get there faster. No, folks. Like I said, let the free market. This is the beautiful thing. And once again, I got to reference the name. Go back and listen to and read what people like Adam Smith espoused in publications such as The Wealth of the Nation. Free trade matters, and free trade allows proper incentives to flourish. Cronyism, central planning, forced subjugation, fascism, communism, socialism, all these collective endeavors, that sacrifice individuals, whether they're just an individual person or an individual business. That's always a detriment for the population, for those who rely on these institutions, these entities, these businesses to make their lives easier, to make their economic purchases much more aligned with natural valuations, with proper valuations. Agricultural Secretary Sonny Perdue said last month at a Chicago convention that the Community Credit Corporation is a tool he's considering to comply with Trump's instructions to craft the strategy to support our farmers against retaliatory tariffs. The program, which was started to help farmers during the Great Depression, allows the Agricultural Department to borrow as much as $30 billion from the U.S. Treasury that could be used to buy crops from farmers that would go unsold in a trade war. So once again, this is protectionism, this is cronyism, this is using, tens of billions of dollars to prop up their economy or to prop up their crony corporations when they see the potential of economic harms imposed by other countries such as Canada or the European Union. Protectionism is a terrible, terrible thing, folks, when you're talking about actual trade. Trade, free trade, we all should promote. So once again, folks, this is tens of billions of dollars, right? And this is why half the reason why I'm reading this article is to point out to Trudeau and all these other dipshits. Not fucking, like I say, I'm not promoting any cronyism or any central planning model, but I'm just saying, if you think you're going to go up against the U.S. and you're just going to somehow what? Because Trudeau's offering to bail out some of our fucking failures in the market economy, or those who just have lived off the fucking government teat and have been subsidized for so long that they just don't feel like they can compete in a natural market environment. As much as Trudeau thinks that he can fucking bail them out, well, you know what? This is just another proof positive example that, well, so can the U.S. And the U.S. has the world reserve currency, for fuck's sakes. To think that you're going to be able to... But once again, who's going to suffer in the end? Who's ultimately going to suffer from all this protectionism, from all this fucking bickering and fighting over fucking trade, which in reality, it should be built upon proper market and economic fundamentals? Who's going to lose, folks? It's you or I, and it's the American people. And there is no one that's going to truly benefit except crony corporations. Well, yes, actually, let me correct myself. There will be some small, minute segment of the economy of our populations that will benefit from this. But the overwhelming majority of us, we're going to suffer. We're going to see prices increase. We're going to see, maybe, smaller packaging, as we've seen now. I mean, this kind of stuff, there will be creativity and innovation as a result of this, but it's going to be in a negative manner. It's not going to be in a positive manner for you, right? It's going to be, once again, that race to the lowest common denominator. That race to not that proper competitive race that raises and elevates each other, but that chops away and negates market fundamentals and brings us down to a spot where we should have really surpassed this and moved away from it long ago. Representative Colin Peterson, Democrat from Minnesota, the ranking Democrat on the House Agricultural Committee, has said using the funds would set a bad precedent by politicizing farm payments, Bloomberg reported. I'm against a one-time bailout of a situation created by the administration, Peterson said earlier this year. Farmers want their markets left intact and not screwed up by some policy. Giving them money isn't necessarily going to buy them off. But once again, it's not like as if these fuckers actually function in a genuine free market scenario anyways. There's so much fucking intervention in the economy from the government, from these central planning hacks, by these socialists, these fucking communists, these fascists, that once again, these kind of arguments, no wonder they happen and why they play out in this manner, because everyone has legitimate grievance against everyone else, because we don't function in a genuine free market economy, not just domestically, but definitely not globally. So, like, I see the people on the left and the right, they can make these arguments, and they're coherent, and they're legitimate. They're legitimate grievances and beefs that they have. But the problem is, you got to look at yourself. Like Jordan Peterson said, hey, how about start cleaning up your own fucking room before you start criticizing everyone else, right? And like I say, I could point my finger at the Canadian people, the Canadian corporation, the Canadian government, the U.S., and all kinds of places all around the world and say, yeah, how about you start leading by example? Anyways, I'll post a link to this article. It's a little bit longer, and I think it's worthwhile reading for sure. And I just wanted to show you that, hey, yeah, I'm not just all about, helping the U.S. and suppressing Canadian corporations or certain segments in the economy. I'm just saying, listen, I'll hold everyone to account. I have blinders on when it comes to, using proper morals and ethics when you're talking about economic transactions and interactions. I want the free market to flourish, not just in Canada and the U.S. and in Western countries. Matter of fact, I'd like to see the free market actually flourish and proper incentives flourish on a scale that would truly represent a free market for all. I'm not all about picking winners or losers based on, skin color or geographics or demographics. No, I believe in freedom for all. But once again, for that to happen, it has to be reciprocal. It can't be a one-way street. If you're not willing to give me my freedoms, well, if I give you your freedoms and you're not willing to give me mine, well, what does that place me at? That makes me a sacrificial lamb, a sacrificial animal for you. That gives you a leg up on me that I've given you. Yeah, no, I'm not all about turning the other cheek. No fucking way. You better be willing to do the same thing. Otherwise, yep, this is the reality. This is the future that we see. This is the future that will unfold and entail and ensue if we don't start, holding each other and ourselves to a much higher standard. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.